Very cool. All right, thanks for coming out. Today's talk is about Roots, a WordPress development kit, I suppose, that I find really elegant. And it answered a bunch of questions for me. It answered the questions, can I develop with others? Can I put this in a Git source control repository? Can I have a parity between my local development environment and my staging and production, meaning are they the same? Are they doing the same things? Are they the same components installed and controlling that, and also having a good front-end theme? So those are my reasons, and I'll get in details about that stuff. This session is recorded, so if I go a bit fast, you'll be able to watch it again after that, and at the end I'll open up for questions. Sounds good? Yeah? Okay, so Roots. What's Roots? Roots was started as just a theme, and now it's 3 components now. So the first component at the top, you see it's Sage, which is a modern theme system. And then there's Bedrock and Trellis, 2 other components that evolved, that came up throughout the years. Bedrock is a way to package your project in a Git repo. All your plugins, all your WordPress plugins are treated as dependencies, composer dependencies. So PHP allows you to have your dependencies, meaning I need this plugin, I need this, and I need that. Well, Bedrock allows you to do that with plugins, with WordPress plugins, and also WordPress core is also treated as a dependency. And so when it's installed in a subdirectory somewhere. You don't even edit any of the files inside it. All the site configurations is done at the Bedrock level. So you don't touch any files inside of the WordPress directory. It's also a secure app-like folder structure. So if you've done web development using Rails or something like that, you'll see that the folder structure is very similar. And basically, with that setup, you've got WordPress, but WordPress is just one of those dependencies for your app, and that your app is in a source-controlled repository. Trellis answers the problem, can I have a local development environment, so on my machine, running with version of PHP and all that stuff, to be the same as what I have in production on my staging server. And so the way it does it is that it takes care of your whole recipe of what gets installed on the server within code. Trellis is a bunch of definitions for what to install on the server, some scripts to be able to point to a blank server running Ubuntu, for example. I run that script and it will install everything on it. Same thing with your local environment. Same thing. So those scripts just set all that up and keep everything the same. And also Trellis is a way for you to deploy and also do rollbacks and things like that. So it's very elegant. It's very cool. So let's just go through why you would be interested in Roots. So it would be useful if you want to collaborate on the site with coworkers. It could also be useful if you want to get to get good at common modern front-end craftsman tools that are portable to other systems. For example, if you're using Laravel, the latest Roots has a lot of latest Sage theme system has a lot of things that are very similar to Laravel. And so if you want to invest your skills in getting really good at things that are marketable in other areas, Sage has got a lot of those things, and I would argue Bedrock and Trellis as well. You want to use only one part of the 3 parts. Well, you can do that. You can just use Sage theme system. You don't have to use Bedrock. You can use Bedrock, but not the theme if you'd already have a theme for your site. You can also use Trellis by itself. Although Trellis, I think, assumes certain things about your that you probably have a folder structure like Bedrock. I'll get back to that in a bit. So you can use one of these 3 or all 3 if you'd like. It could also be useful if you want to get good at front-end theme systems that uses Bootstrap 4, single compiled JavaScript using ECMAScript 6 and NPM Yarn, and Blade templates. templates in Sage are not your normal WordPress templates. They give you a toolkit to define your templates in Blade, which is very, very elegant as well, and it's compiled down into normal WordPress templates. Or maybe you'd want to join a community in an active development of people with similar values. So they've got like this discourse forum, very active, a lot of people helping out. It's and also the development of these 3 tools, which these icons are at the top right. Well, the sites are really useful too. The documentation is also very useful, and I like it. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool community. If you want to quickly roll back your deploys, so you deploy something, and you're like, oh no, it's not working out. I made a change, and it was too early. I need to roll back. So you just put in a command, an Ansible playbook specifically for rolling back, and you just define the domain and the environment, meaning staging or production, and it's going to revert it back to the way it was before instantly. And it does that because on the server, it keeps 5 releases back, so the current release plus 4, and all it does when it does a rollback is it changes a symbolic link. It says current is no longer that one, it's this one, and then boom, you're all set. So so that's cool. The plugins, for example, will all be reverted back to the plugin version you wanted just before. So and lastly, so you want to have a, so that's not the last one, you want to have a local environment that matches your staging and prod servers. So, and you don't have to, and also you might be using a specific version of PHP on this project but not on another one. And so you set it up, and it's just using Vagrant up. Vagrant is it's to set up your virtual machines locally, and to use those recipes, those Ansible recipes, and boom, you've got a local development environment. And lastly, you want to up your game, and you want to work on some very nice custom sites quickly. Meaning, you want to get good and you want to get fast at creating sites, because you've got some clients who are, for example, designers. You've got design firms and giving you beautiful designs, and you want to be the guy or the girl who gets asked to do that site, and you can turn it around quickly, you can add value, you can respect that beautiful design, and you want to be part of designs like these. This site, beautiful, this one's really cool, surefire, and so that's it. So how about we go through a project? How about we go through a project together? And this is going to be the project. So it's, for example, let's make a fan site for Roots. Let's say we're a fan of Roots, and we're a fan of some of the sites, and we want to showcase, using pictures like this, sites that have been done in Roots. And so let's take the sites that are in the Roots discourse forum. There's a special section for live examples, and let's take examples from there. Let's make a nice site out of it. So it's going to be a single page site. We won't, like, if you tap on these examples, they're going to go straight to the site, but so single page. So probably it's going to be the home page. Just the home page is going to house this. And so the content of the home page is going to be that stuff on the right, and the logo at the top is going to be defined by the theme this time. You could use advanced custom fields for setting that logo centrally. We won't do that for this project. And the stuff on the left is going to be a Vue.js based list. Vue.js, it's a bit like React, it's a bit like, well, it's not quite like Angular, but it just allows you to do some really JavaScript-y things in the front very elegantly. It's not like the wrangling you have to do with jQuery. It also plays nice with the REST API from WordPress to just go get my list of sites and just display them. So, and the reason why I'm choosing a Vue.js based site is, one, I want to show off the capabilities of the Sage theme with you guys. I want to so the Sage theme does JavaScript really well. It also does Webpack, which is a way to get your JavaScript to be packaged all into one small JavaScript. And Vue.js is really well done for that stuff. So it's upping your game to what's useful for doing JavaScript right now and effortless. And Vue.js definitely is one of those very elegant things. So let's go with that. So we'll need also, it'll be kind of neat if we just have something that's an infinite scroll. When you get to the bottom, it's going to fetch some more from the REST API. So that's going to be easy to implement that way. And also, we're going to need some custom post types, meaning a custom definition of what one of those sites is, and some custom fields to go with that. URL, the source, where it comes from, the image, etc. Also, the reason why, if we're going to want to do desktop, it'd be nice to have a screenshot that's like the mobile view of it. So 2 fields for images, 1 for desktop and 1 for mobile. So that's going to be a bit the idea. We're going to use Bootstrap for this, Bootstrap 4, which Sage, the latest version of Sage uses. And so we're going to have 2 columns, one on the right and one on the left. And what else am I? So that's pretty much the plan. So let's go for it. Okay, let's go. So let's see where we're at. So okay, so we're gonna pick one. Okay, so okay, and presentation. Let's go for it. Okay, let's start. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start our project, and it's going to be, we're going to create a new folder called Built with Roots. That's going to be our starting point. So I'm now in Built with Roots. I've got nothing in here. And we're going to install 2 things. We're going to install Trellis and we're going to install Bedrock. And those are going to be the 2 things that we'll need. So first off, let's download Trellis, and it's going to take it straight from GitHub, and it's going to install, and it can create a Trellis folder, right? You got that stuff here. Trellis is your first thing. Second thing we're going to install is Bedrock. So just adjacent to it, Bedrock. Let's go for it. There we go. And you've got 2 folders, Site and Trellis. Site is your Bedrock thing. That's where your WordPress install is. Trellis is just that sub part where all your recipes for creating your local development environment, and your servers and all that. And so let's do that. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into Bedrock itself, and we're going to install Sage. So this last one, Composer Create Projects root Sage. The name of the project is all we got to do now. It's downloading Sage, and it's going to put it in the right spot. For that, what I did first is went into Site, Web App Themes. Now it's asking me, it's installing Sage. It's going to ask me a few questions. It's going to ask me, do you want to run Git? Do you want to remove the existing? Yes, well, I want to do that. And I want to change the theme name to this instead. And theme URI, that's fine. Just going to reuse that. And I'm going to use Bootstrap here. And font awesome. Yep. Let's use. I won't use it. I don't think I'll use it, but and that's going to be what I'll do. Is that the theme directory? Yes. Local development URL. Now we're going to do built with roots.dev. So it recommends a .dev, and .devs are really handy. So built with roots.dev. You're telling me if I'm okay. All right, so now I'm inside the site web app themes. So you'll notice, for those of you who know WordPress, that the themes are usually in the WP content directory, right? In this case, Bedrock says we're gonna rename WP content to app. That may impact a few plugins that hard code WP content for some of the things that it needs. You can get around that a bit. What you do is you set up a catch-all rewrite rule to say anything that's was meant to be in WP content, assume that it's going to be in this other directory. So there's ways around that. And since you have Trellis, you can set that rewrite rule right on the server really nicely. So you can catch those stray URLs. But if it's for something that is like hard-coded root path for your plugin, then you may want to tell your plugin developer to not hard-code that. But by now, like a lot of the plugins have been updated. I guess that because of roots and Bedrock has been there for a little while, so that's probably a non-issue for most of your projects. All right, so now let's go back to the root of our little setup here, and I went into the site directory, and we're going to install some plugins now. So you see that let's go peer into this directory right here, cd web. You'll see wp-config is outside of your normal WordPress directory, and your normal WordPress directory is going to be it's going to be installed, I think, right here. Actually, it's going to be app, and then WP is going to be installed right there. So let's go back, and right here, let's install some plugins. So this is one of the ways to do it, and you can either edit this composer.json and say, right here in my require, I can add some stuff in here. You'll see that WordPress 4.7.5, I should update this, 4.7.6 is just out, and this is where the WordPress being included is defined, and so you can lock that into code and say, that's it, that's the version of WordPress that I'm working with, and I'm sticking to it, and my plugins as well. So another way to do it is on the command line, and you just go composer require, and then you'll see right over here, you'll see the names of these, the short names of these plugins and the versions. Right in front here, it says WP Packages plugin. That just says to go look in a composer repository called WP Packages, which is a mirror of all of your normal WordPress plugins repository where they all are. So this is a mirror, and it houses all the latest versions of all the WordPress plugins, and so you can log that into your dependencies. So I won't. Okay, so I'll go like this, and I'll go Control C because I don't want to go through with it. So at this point, let's say we ran that and we installed those plugins, and composer.json will have been installed, and then those plugins will be installed right in your web app and then plugins directory, and it's going to be right there. Of course, these plugins are going to be there, but your project, your Git project, won't recognize those. They're going to be outside of your source code kind of thing. They won't get included into your source, so you won't have all these files that are getting they'll eat up your repository. Okay, now let's take a step further and let's cheat a bit, and I'm going to start the database so that it goes. Actually, let's start right there. I think it's already set up pretty nicely. Yeah, this is the starting point. So let's say we've installed those plugins now, and you've got these things installed, and we can start by, for example, adding a page, and let's add the home page. and that's going to be the first one to add. And then let's go into tools and available tools. Settings, general. Reading. And then say that the static page is going to be home. Did I?
Publish it. It was only drafted.
Gotcha. You got it. So reading, and you define the front page to be home. And then we could add, you can add the content right in there. So that could be one of the first steps that we do. Instead, what I'll do is let's speed it up a bit. Okay, so now we have okay, so let's pretend that we have this code set up. So now we have if you look in composer.json here, it'll be, we've got this so this is the composer.json for the theme. So let's work inside the theme now, and let's add some things. So we are now looking at the theme on the left. So let's run through a bit the directory structure of the theme. We've got some of them that are grayed out and some of them that are not. The ones that are grayed out are not committed to code, and the ones that are not grayed out are the ones that we can change. It's worth noting that the theme requires a few things. It does require its own PHP stack, so it has its own requirements. That's why there's this composer.json here. It needs a few things that are probably taken from Laravel to do your blade templates, and it also needs a few other things. It also has some JavaScript dependencies, and this is through package.json, and it will list all the dev dependencies that it relies on, jQuery, Bootstrap, etc. And it compiles out all that stuff. So I didn't go through the steps of installing the npm things, the JavaScript things, but those are extra steps that you have to do before you start. Okay, resources, app. You'll see a few things. Inside app here, they put the helpers, the setup, the filters, some which are subfiles that are usually found in functions.php in your normal WordPress setup. And they extract that out into a few files that you can edit. And for example, with my custom post types, and is it here? I think it's in helpers or filters. I added some special, like a special URL field for my admin menu, for example. This is where I edited it. So that I can have that customization. And resources is where we find our styles and our templates. And assets and views are where our styles and our views. So views will include all of those blade templates, and you have some partials, meaning some parts of your templates, and then your default ones as well. And app.blade gets the big picture of all your templates, for example. So you've got it includes some partials. Your header is included right there, and your head is included right there, and so on and so forth. And in the middle right here is where your content is going to get transcluded into it. So no more like in WordPress you had like part of your HTML at the top, part of your HTML at the bottom, and they were in different files. And here you get a full view of your whole template, and then you see exactly where it's included, where your content's going to live inside which element. you got a bird's eye view of it. And for example, here's the head. Here's what the head looks like. Here's what the header looks like, and you get the idea. So you've got so that's what we got going with for the templates. In assets is where you got your styles. So you got styles, scripts, images are found here. Fonts, if you'd like to have custom fonts, you can put them right here, and it's going to know what to do with it. It's gonna serve them up real nice if you want to have some custom fonts if you'd like. And in the build directory is all your configuration on how to set up Webpack if you need to make small edits, which we will have to do for Vue, and I'll skip over that. So in styles, this is a typical Sass setup where you've got your main CSS includes all these other things, and it all compiles down into one very small CSS file, and it's really beautiful. If you want to have some custom components, you can put them right here. Some custom layouts, you can put them here as well, and just make sure you include them in main CSS. And in your scripts, this is the beauty of the latest and greatest JavaScript, is you can have import into your JavaScript some other JavaScripts, and Webpack will just take all those parts and put them into one, and so so that's really beautiful. Also, Sage includes this one trick that defines one script per page. So if you want to define a special JavaScript for one page, for example, the About Us page, then all you got to do is you got to make sure that that About page has the word About in it, and if and it's going to check for the word About Us. Yeah, it's going to check it for About-Us and the body class. If it finds that class on the page, automatically it uses the JavaScript that's going to be in.
Wait a second. You're keying this on page names?
Yeah. So
if I change the page name, it breaks.
Only if you change the page name, yes, but you won't change the slug at that point. If you change the slug, you have to change this.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I don't want to derail this, but I mean, even basic userland stuff like Yoast allows you to specialize the slug, right? Like you can have testimonials turns into kind words, or things people say about me.
Yeah.
So this keys in on userland stuff, so a user can break this.
Userland stuff, yeah. Like as you said, yeah, it does, but that's by default. I mean, you can do what you want at that part, but this is by default. This just gives you that that setup if you'd like, and then you can just decide what you want to do. For example, you can put everything in common, and common is your JavaScript that's going to be on every page, and then after that you can decide how to fire off certain JavaScripts on certain pages depending on some other criteria. But out of the box, this is what it gives you. Does that answer your question? Is that good? And I mean that's a good point that you bring up, that users will probably change the slug of URLs, and that will throw that off. I suppose too that you can define this for just some key pages that might not change their slug that often, but I guess you can see the use case.
The problem from where I said isn't the fact that it would change often or not often. The fact is that you're defining this incredibly complicated system that falls apart as soon as someone changes the slug.
Right. Yeah.
That seems to be a pretty critical problem here. I don't want, we can talk about it after.
Right. Oh, that's a good point that you bring up. So each one of these scripts is defined separately, and then CommonJS you've got these two places where you can put init and finalize, these two places where you can put some custom JavaScript to be fired whenever those things occur. And that's basically the setup. So I'm going to create a page called frontpage.blade.php. So I'm going to go in my views, and I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to call it front page, not PHP. So this one is going to be your blade template for just the front page, and this is where I'm going to include the I'm going to include the code for the home page itself. So see how in here I'm going to have the asset for the logo. It's going to be included in here. My content is going to be filled into here, and I'm going to have this. My sites to be included in this one here. And in that case, you've got two divs. And by the way, because we're using Bootstrap 4, and Bootstrap 4 uses Flexbox instead of floats for your ordering, you can define that the content here is going to be at the top, but when it is, you can define it so that in your style sheets you can say whenever it's going to be a bigger screen, then your stuff is going to be on the right, your content is going to be on the right, and the other column is going to be on the left. So so that's the first step. Now let's look at how do we do Vue.js things. How do we set that up? Well, you go into here, and then I'm in my theme folder, and so we're going to go yarn add Vue, and by adding Vue, it's gonna install what it needs. I need to install some more dependencies. I won't go into those details, but once that's installed, I can start using Vue.js. And to set up Vue.js, I'm going to take one of the files, which is going to be the JavaScript files, script. I'm going to go into home. So my route called home. It's going to be from my home page. And I'm going to include this stuff here. So I'm importing Vue. Vue is a requirement that I need, and I'm going to be including sticky fill, which is another one that I previously installed. And whenever the page loads, it's going to create a new view, and it's going to search for the element app. What's this one? It's this one right here. It's a custom element, and Vue.js will look inside here, and it will look for components. So sites is a component for Vue.js, and is a single component in here, and we're going to define that separately. The sites.vue is going to be defined in a special file, and let's set that up. So we need a new file called sites.vue. So in scripts, I'm going to create a new folder called view and sites.vue. And the way Vue.js works is that you've got your templates at the top that defines your HTML, and you've got your script at the bottom. And it's basically a for loop. That's going to take my sites that I'm getting from the REST API, and it's going to loop through them, and it's going to output each site right over here. And further down here in the exports, we're going to define how to fetch from the REST API to go get the sites, and how to properly mount them in and everything. But that's just a starter for Vue.js, and I'm going to show you an example of how it looks at the end. So let's say I'm done for the day, and I pass that on to another collaborator of mine that's working on the site. And so I'm going to commit all that stuff. So, and I'm going to say that add Vue, start front page. So we've got that set up. Now he tells me, okay, I've done the work and I've installed everything else, and I've got details sites dot sorry, I've got detailed all the site stuff, and so my sites.vue has a lot more stuff in there. So he did all the work, and all of my code is now updated. And now he also told me, by the way, I've got this this copy of the database. If you'd like, I've included everything you want in there. And so I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. So we're gonna go. We're gonna import it, and wp db import web app uploads db, and there we go. So if you go into here, you'll get the homepage content, which is already in there, and we'll have a new custom post type called sites, and it has these 4 sites. And if we go if we go on localhost, you'll see that that we've got a site running, and we'll need to start our development environment here for Sage, and this runs. This compiles everything. This lets you see what's going on localhost, but it also includes this really nifty thing called Browser Sync. Browser Sync allows you to see the site, and whenever you make a change to any of your style sheets or any of your blade templates or any of your view templates, it automatically updates the how the site looks. And so, and it even throws you errors whenever there's something to be fixed. And so, what's going on here? Home.js. Right. So at this point, it's missing my style sheets and my JavaScript, and it didn't compile them. Oh, built with roots here. That's right. There you go. So you've got so this is the finished product, and you can see your sites have been put in, and they have been updated this way. So that's a bit how you put together a site like this. And let's run through a bit the Vue.js stuff. You will find that in Vue sites, for example, you still have this same for loop, and for each one of those sites that you find, you include site, and site is one of these files here. So it looks, whenever there's something like here, it will look for components named site, but all in lowercase. And then here, this is where it's defined. I've got an image, I've got my label, and I've got some special stuff here that I'm going to explain a bit how it works. Insights is where I'm going to fetch from the WordPress API, and I'm getting the resulting body, and I'm appending it to sites, and I have extra information from the headers, giving me the total amount of results and total amount of pages that I can set in here, and I can get my site list URL to be defined using this computed property. So that's really nice. And you'll notice that one of the things is that the design calls for having different sized images, so they're not all the same width. And also, those labels are not all in the same spot, and they're not the same color. Sometimes they're reds, sometimes they're pink, sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're gray, sometimes they're white, sometimes they're the left, the right, and the center. And I wanted to add a little bit of variation like that, and just for the purpose of the design. And the way to do that is I define it right here. So my label class over here gets defined like this, and so my label is it left or right or whatnot. And so the position and the theme get defined here, and basically I just look for the ID of that post, and if it, if divisible by 3 equals 0, modulus 3 equals 0, then it's light, otherwise it's dark. So I get like some small front-end logic here to add some variation, and that makes for that design. So that's basically the project. But now, what else can we do about this? We can add some more things. For example, I would like this site to be published, so I would have to define what my URL is. So we'll show you how to do that. I want, for example, this to be an SSL site, so I can enable encryption. I can enable Let's Encrypt. I would like to also install some other things. I would like to have a scheduled task that automatically checks my routes discourse forum, and I would like to be for these new sites that are being added to be automatically added to this site here. And I would like to do that too. So how am I going to go about doing that? In WordPress, there's WordPress cron for schedulers. So if ever you want to do something and you want it to have a repeating task, you can set the cron, the scheduler. But the problem is with default WordPress, the scheduler is based on visits. Is only getting fired whenever there's a visit. Well, by default, Trellis disables that and allows you to have a real scheduler that's in the back, and it fires your WordPress cron on a set timeline. And so we could.
Real scheduler, you mean cron tab?
A cron tab, yeah. And you can define that right in the Trellis definition config files. Got it. So you have that possibility. So I would have this little script that would download, that would look for that would fetch from the API, the Roots Discord forum API, and would look for new entries in the topic, live examples, and I would see if there's a URL, and if so, I would add it in here. I would not publish that new post, but I would create it, and after that I can go in, I can check. Now, what about these screenshots? Those take time to create. I could basically have a same scheduler kind of thing that also uses Phantom.js or some other thing to create a screenshot of these sites automatically, and automatically appends them to each post for me to review. But screenshots take time, so maybe you want to have a queuing system. So I want to add something like a queuing system like Beanstalk, for example, on my server. Well, I could do that too. I could use Trellis to say I want Beanstalk to be installed on my server and in my local development area, and so that all those to-dos that it knows what to do, whenever there's a new URL added to forum, it just adds it in here, downloads these pictures, appends them right in there. So we've got everything we need to make that that setup. And so let's look at what that would look like for Trellis if we wanted to set that up. So so here's what Trellis looks like a little bit. You've got the folder structure is the following. You've got all the stuff that's in roles is all the sort of recipes for installing stuff like Nginx and which version of PHP, and how to set up WordPress and how to install it, and all these recipes that are defined here. You can add your own. You can also define your hosts. For example, if you want to define your the IP address of your staging server, you would do it right here. Production server, same. You can, and this is where you define in group varts, this is where you define each one of your development areas. And so you define here a new entry for one site called buildwithroots.online, for example. And this would be your local dev is here. And whenever you run your script to do your local development area, it takes those configs and it does all your decisions for you. It just basically mounts it up, and it creates everything so that it works. And so if you go with staging would be staging.builtwithroots.online. That would be the URL for it. This would be where I would put my Git repo for this project. And I could say I want this let's encrypt stuff to be true. So I will have SSL enabled, and when I do that and I just run that script again to update the server, it's going to get Let's Encrypt to be all set up. You can see if you're making a lot of sites like this, you have to, like, these steps could take a long time, but if it's all automated, it's pretty quick. So, and if I wanted to add some, for example, Beanstalk, I could add a go find a Beanstalk recipe and add it right to my Trellis repo. Beanstalk would be that one that would help me that to-do system to go get some images and add them when they're ready and stuff like that. And so that's basically the setup for Trellis, for Sage, and for Bedrock. Is all starting from here. And you can define them all in the Trellis directory here. So at this point, I would have all these next steps if I wanted to build this site online. And if you'd like to give a shot at this development environment, and you'd like to give it a shot, well, you're invited to come help out, finish off the site if you'd like. Just ping me and search for me on GitHub, and I can give you the URL for that repo, and then you could download this. You can try it on your local computer, and you can also contribute to it if you'd like, if you want to give it a shot. So at this point, I'm open to. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that you'd like to ask?
So I have a question. How does the when you're moving from dev to prod, if you're using like a hosting company, is that two questions. First, if you've already got a production site,
yeah,
this is probably a topic for a whole different discussion. But
right,
how do you pull that into this? You've got your backups, you've got the database and all the plugins and themes. Is there probably find some documentation to pull it back into roots?
Yeah.
My development environment. And then the second part of the question is,
yeah,
pushing back forward in the production.
Right. So the way that I would go about doing it is I would. So the question is, if you've got already a site in production and you'd like to retrofit it for roots, Is that it? And how to deploy it again. Right, so I would set up a new server because that is if you want to keep with the Trellis as well. Trellis to make Trellis the authority for defining how your server is set up. So I would create a new server, say on a DigitalOcean, a droplet, a $5 a month droplet would be the starting point.
Is that your development, or is that
no? That would be
staging.
That would be staging. That could even house your staging in production if you'd like, or if you can have one for production, one for staging. And what you do is you make one new server like that, and you just say Ubuntu, and it's going to be an empty shell with nothing installed in it, no Nginx, anything. Then you define you'll have an IP address. You define your Trellis to push there when you push to staging or push to production, right? So you then define your site in routes now. If you and you piece together the things, your styles, your plugins, and everything. You just recreate your setup. Depending on whether or not you made a lot of changes to your templating, you'll have to rewrite them in Blade if you use the latest version of Sage, which, like I said in the beginning, Blade is also used in other places, also used in Laravel, so it's not all lost, and also it makes for some for a nice markup. So it's a treat to work with. So now you're following me. You retrofit your routes, you install your plugins, you add your styles, and you download the database, and you just include it in here. And once everything is set up right, and you're pushing to this new production server, which nothing points to, you can then switch over your DNS, your domain name, to point to the new server. That's how I would go about doing it, right? And then after that, you can use plugins like WP Migrate DB Pro or something like that, which is yeah, you're already pretty comfortable. So you see what I mean. So you'll have that set up in order to
like
push and pull.
If you're using a theme developed somewhere else, somebody else developed a theme, it sounds like that could be a pretty sticky part.
It could be, but you don't like if your theme is already developed somewhere else, you can still get the benefits of like you can forego the Sage theme layer completely. Right. You can just use Trellis and just Trellis and Bedrock, which are your two foundational parts, and your theme is already defined somewhere else, and that works fine, right? You don't touch it. It's only if you want to make a custom theme that you'll use Sage, if you so choose, and if you'd like, and if you want to do that. So.
Okay, and you said DigitalOcean, you can get a cheap service there. I assume the Ubuntu interface is just as good, right? Yeah. That works too. So long as it's an Ubuntu server, it'll work fine. But you know, for keeping uptime and things like that, DigitalOcean is great. Also, it also makes there's a Canadian data center for DigitalOcean, so you can make sure that your servers in Canada, which will affect your search rankings a bit with your, you know, if it's not a .ca or stuff like that, it'll show up in Google Canada search and things. So that's those are good considerations. Also, Amazon has Lightsail, which is a equivalent to DigitalOcean droplets, so you can use that too if you'd like.
Amazon has data center in Montreal.
It does, cool. So
also remember that stuff like DigitalOcean is an unmanaged server. So you're responsible for firewall, you're responsible for system updates, you're responsible for everything that you don't normally think of.
Sure.
Backups.
Just like the base.
Everything, yeah. Like it's bare metal basically. Okay. It's just virtual.
The benefit of using so those are good points. So if you wanted to install new things on the server, you could just detail that in Trellis. One of the things in Trellis that I didn't do, for example, is if you wanted to have caching. So one of the things that people do a lot is they use a plugin for caching, and that will sort of first defense against like a lot of traffic. But you can also define that at the server level using fast CGI caching, which is at the server level, and it'll just add a little bit of caching to take the edge off of having a lot of people come to your site, and you can just enable that right in Trellis. Just a single thing that you just enable, and it's going to install that CGI cache. So you get that for free without relying on a plugin to do that. Also, I wouldn't be surprised that there's some smart defaults in Trellis for stuff like backups, and I'm not really sure, but if the whole server goes down, you can just rebuild it. Like if you want to have database backups, well, you can still do that. It's still a good idea to do that and download them, and there's even a service for automating WordPress backups. I think I remember seeing. Yeah. So you got those options too. So those are your options.
Excellent, thanks.
Yes.
So now if you're on, let's say, DigitalOcean, and you've got 2 servers clustered, HA proxy between 2 of them, how would you then deploy that one site and do updates to both servers at the same time?
So you can define, I think, more than one endpoint for your production servers. I think you might be able to do that, but don't quote me on that. What I do remember is how they do it is at that point they do cloning. So they just they use an Amazon service to have snapshots of your servers, and so you deploy to one, which is your snapshot. You make a snapshot of that, and then you just replicate. You take one, you make a new server, you push your snapshot onto there, and you let go of some other your old ones if you'd like. So that'll give you 2 front-end servers that will round robin IP address and all that stuff. Your 2 front ends are going to be replicated using snapshots. That's one of the ways that I've heard that they do it. There's a podcast episode talk about infrastructure from the Roots team, and they talk about that snapshotting technique and using the Amazon DB server. I can't remember what it's called, to put the DB in the back behind those 2 front end servers.
Let's say you just have to do a layout change to one of the files, to one of the templates. You're not going to snapshot through your way through the whole infrastructure to just update a file.
No, they use
templates.
you can't like they use symbols.
Oh, okay.
So okay. Rick, do you have any questions? Okay.
So, anybody else have anything for I guess we can.
Okay.
Any other questions then? Well, thank you, Pascal. This conversation.
Thank you. I'm all done.
Any other questions in general? Otherwise, we will see you at the next meetup.
Where do we find the
Good question.
broadcast?
Okay, so I'll since you make sure that so on meetup.com I can send you a note, or I can send that to
You
Rick.
can actually post a comment to the meetup.
Okay.
So, like for tonight's meetup, you can post a comment, put the link into wherever you're putting the broadcast.
Will do, and the repo for this I'll also include a link to the repo for this if you'd like to download it and try to replicate it on your local computer, and you'll have everything. Okay.
Don't forget, there's some pins and stickers over there if you want some WordPress swag on the way up.
Thanks very much for coming.